He's up late to give you the news you can't get anywhere else early. He fights for truth and justice and the American way. Please welcome our pal from the Paragon Trust Company, the real Tony D. Tony D'Angelo.
All right, here we go, everybody. As always, same bad time, same bad channel. We bring on our very good pal, the one and only Tony D'Angelo. You can find him up on the X, Tony D'Angelo 7. Check that out today. Of course, on Thursdays, he unleashes one of his magnificent videos. It's usually produced by someone like Francis Ford Coppola, right? That's who does it, the Godfather guy. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe Steven Spielberg, something like that.
My Godfather's come a lot cheaper, but thank you.
Tony D joins us. Good morning, Tony. How are you, buddy?
Good morning, Elci. Good morning, everyone, and proud to be among you.
So I think from our previous meetings and discussions, you're going to talk about the woes of socialism today, correct?
It's a multifaceted thing, and yes, good morning. It's almost like poltergeist. They're back, and it started again yesterday. And I was just reading about this last night. Coming to a blue state near you, our Attorney General William Tong is coming out and saying they're price gouging again. The government, might be robbing you, and not the government, but the grocery stores might be robbing you. And they want to save us from ourselves. And this is this whole thing. And he has new authority because there's a new law which allows him to do this. There's a couple of dumb Republicans that voted for it. They have no idea, what happens after they do something. But we've been through that time and time again. What nobody understands or nobody wants to understand, I've had grocery store clients. The margins are like a good margin in a grocery store. Net profit is like 2%. That's like, let's bring out the champagne. And the grocer is not getting rich. It's everything else in between. And where does it all come down to, Elci? It all comes down to free market energy. It all comes down to the Trump economic fuel program and what you need. Cheap energy makes everything cheap. Now, my little plastic gum container, the radio people can't see it. I'm holding it up. Made with petroleum. My cheap little pen, made with petroleum. Everything is made with petroleum. And throw the name Trump out if you hate Trump, but you need cheap energy. And it's always, it's tariffs. They now have a new thing. We got to have, it's the tariffs that are going to drive everybody. Trump is going to drive us all out of business, and he's going to ruin the entire economy. And I'm like, it is the same thing with these people time and time again. And there's no good here. There's nothing happening that's good. Two things. Completely lost on Democrats, almost 85% lost on Republicans, especially local Republicans. Number one, market forces, supply, demand, the willing buyer, the willing seller, neither having any compulsion to buy or sell, they arrive at a price. And the other thing is just being able to choose between different things. If something's up, you say, well, what can I do that's less? What can I do? Maybe I can do without. Maybe I can have a workaround, which will bring the other things down. I don't know if you saw this. I don't know how publicized it was, but Chris Murphy, our senator, I'm ashamed to say that. And again, I have to apologize to the people that might be watching this outside the state of Connecticut. Thank you for watching. He had this very deranged video where he was just moaning and groaning about the cancellation of Stephen Colbert. And how dare they do this? This is against free markets. This is against freedom of speech. And the show is losing $40 million a year, if I have that right. Now, and it's this concept, right? It is this concept in politics that if you are in business for yourself, if you take a risk, if you have shareholders, if you have investors, you must lose money for the greater good. Don't you get it? And if you don't get it, there's something wrong. The fact is, Republicans don't attack this guy like every 5 minutes. And just, it's I don't get it. I honestly don't get it. Makes me wonder about it. But it is this whole thing, as far as what it comes down to. They're really pushing for a socialist economy. What is socialism? Well, I think Senator Tommy Tuberville said it perfectly yesterday. Socialism is communism without a gun, basically. It is the fact that you get there. It's your obligation to serve government. And if you don't get this thing right, something we're going to talk about very shortly that I think is incredibly scary, this is all going to be over and collapsing very, very quickly. A lot of, Republicans talking about Donald Trump and the winning and this and that, and this is changing. I think we're at a point right now where I think, to your point about Epstein, which we'll talk about in a moment, I'm sure we'll bump into it. It's like wake up and smell the coffee time, Elci.
So I want to go back to your grocery store analogy in the beginning of this, because a friend of mine down the road runs a grocery store. And I've said this before on the air, but I'll say it again. When the prices in Connecticut started to spike and public benefits became part of the equation, his bill went from $9,000 a month to almost, I think it was almost 19. So he basically was almost ready to go out of business. And he had to greatly escalate the cost of the goods and services. So,
can I stay here? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So then this is just like a mom and pop local grocery store that everybody loves. It's always, busy. But can you imagine, you're when we talk about our own energy situations here in the state, I mean, some energy costs went from 300 to 800, or 250 to 500. But can you imagine going essentially from 9,000 to doubling your electric bill every single month? It's impossible to compete. It's impossible to survive in those situations. And that's where the government has their heavy thumb on the scales, and they can wreck businesses because of that.
Well, and Vivek Ramaswamy, who's one of the few guys that gets it, one of the few guys that could see the whole field, he said, and he came on TV on Sunday, and he said a lot of the fault with this, and he was talking about, national Republicans, he said, is national Republicans. They're not seeing the fact that if you hit a free market and if you burden it with heavy, heavy charges and regulations and public benefits charge, that you're not allowing things to develop, you're not allowing things to grow. And you hear very little of that. You hear Republicans say, oh, the price is high. Yeah, I know the price is high. What can you do to bring it down? Well, there's tax incentives, right? There's what is good in the one big beautiful bill. There is the using cheap and plentiful energy. I mean, these are no-brainers, and it's just it amazes me, And as far as and this is the whole thing. I think that I don't know if you saw this, Minneapolis. There was a mayoral primary, and I think this is really kind of the cloak over everything, where I say people need to wake up and smell the coffee. I don't know if you got to look at the guy who ran for the primary and won. He beat sort of a liberal Democrat. His name is Omar Fataya. He's a Somali American. He's 34 years old, and this guy makes Mondami look like Robert Taft, for crying out loud. He wants to eliminate police. He wants a $30 minimum wage. He wants to have entirely free transit and free housing. And think of it. Okay, think of what, where I say you want to feel good about Donald Trump. Well, maybe we need to look to see a lot of what's behind that, and where you need to look at the whole field. You got this guy. He's probably going to win in Minneapolis. Tough to beat Mondami in New York. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's really, really, really tough, because the machinery, if you will, putting these people in power is on their resources and on their side. The Fataya primary had a technical glitch. Connecticut in elections has had technical glitches and voter issues, and what happened here, what happened there, the wet ballots and all that. That whole team now is playing for the farthest to the left. So think about it. Think about all of these mayors and all of these cities that, if you finally go off the rails, Michelle Wu in Boston, okay, she's 30% up on Robert Kraft's son. I mean, destroying the city. Come down to DC, and you've got Muriel Bowser. This whole thing, and as far as in Connecticut, people want to laugh at Josh Elliott. I mean, I ain't laughing because this guy here is getting a lot of energy, and this is the kind of thing that if you look at, quote unquote, some kid who really has incredible student debt and he's in some little room and will never get out of it. And he's been brainwashed for 4 years to say, well, it was the rich guy that did this to you, and we've got to change things and we've got to make the resources equitable for all. I mean, all you really got to do is get enough of them, maybe a little bit of, technical shading here and there, and you've got a big mess on your hands, Lee Elci. And that's the part that really scares me. If Republicans can't get the basics down, the energy, the tax system, to make things safe and make capital flow, I mean, we're in for it. And I mean, it's like, and people look at me and say, no, you're crazy. I see this. I mean, Bob Swick had an excellent point on Saturday. This is very similar to, and I hate to use the analogy, but unfortunately it's an apt one. Adolf Hitler in 1944 was losing the war. His generals became very upset with him. And they said, we got to get rid of this guy and somehow get to some sort of thing where we can preserve Nazism. And they tried to kill him and they failed. And towards the end of the war, he was walking around with a paralyzed arm. That's the same thing that's happening here. One statistic that I wanted to give you, if you think this is crazy, I was looking at this. Right now, 40 major Democrat office holders are being primary to the left. That's it. This is not going to be moderate Republican versus moderate Democrat. This is going to be the preservation of free enterprise versus way off the rails. This is the type of thing. It's like, am I the only person that's seeing it? And I mean, it's like, basically I have some concerns to your point earlier about Epstein. Trump has to come clean. He has to see this happening. And he has to, whatever kind of fixes he has to make, he has to be honest. A little bit of a history lesson as far as trying to do things offhandedly. Richard Nixon, Watergate, was a third-rate botched burglary. Nothing happened. What happened was this incredible cover-up of all these things that got worse and worse and worse and worse. Nixon understood everything that was happening, didn't get to what he needed to do early. Trump can still do that, but he has to do that pretty darn quickly. Now, Ronald Reagan, Iran-Contra, he was half senile, understood nothing. Other people were running things. It was between Nancy Reagan and Donald Reagan, who were just, fighting over each other. So finally, once he realized what was happening, he came to the American people and said, look, I don't understand any of this, but I'll tell you one thing, I'm responsible and I'm going to fix it. That's really, I think that's a valuable lesson right now, because when you see this storm coming and all of these, crazy people who will be mayors of city, what will they do? What will it come to? And how much power will the federal government have if, you lose the House and you lose the purse? And these people will just as soon burn down their city and blame Donald Trump than actually help the people in their cities. This is scary stuff to me.
I mean, in a place like New York, if they were ever to go with Mondami and he was going to implement some of the things or most of the things he wanted to implement, I mean, how long does that form of government actually last? I can't imagine in New York City that it would last more than his time in office. It would collapse on its own, under its own weight, Tony. It's impossible. The higher income level folks would flee New York City like rats on a ship. They'd be gone, and there'd be no money. They couldn't do any of the things that they would even want to do. It would be impossible.
There is no such thing as a nice socialist. That's the stuff that Josh Elliott in Connecticut's trying to pull. Don't call me a socialist. Well, you're for heavy government intervention. You're for higher taxes on the wealthy. If you start surtaxing, believe me, again, another history lesson. Mario Cuomo started to do that. Mario, father of Andrew, father of Chris. started, was conservative in a lot of ways, but he never met a tax that he didn't like. And one of the things he started with all these investment income taxes and things because he felt the rich should pay more taxes. There was such an exodus out of New York in the early 1990s, coupled with David Dinkins, who was the mayor, was probably conservative, way conservative compared to Mondami. And Rudy Giuliani brought that back, basically, so it's like, Rudy has had his faults, but he did that extremely well. They come back to the same nonsense, the same go-tos, and this time it's going to work. It's not going to work. Right. Everything is a supply, demand, economics, and capitals against you. Look at it this way, right? These people are talking, and it's kind of like, Elliott wants to be socialist light. And it's Mondami's off the charts. The Fatea in Minneapolis is unspeakable. Let's take a few things. Free food, right? And we're going to give out free food, and people won't have to pay for food. Well, what are they going to put in the food? Can they deliver the food? Do they understand logistics? They're going to need trucks to get the food to places. Are these going to be all e-trucks and you can't charge them and people are going to starve? I mean, has anybody thought of that? Well, hey, okay, here's Donald Trump, right? Me president, me invoke spending clause, stop the foolishness. Well, hey, Mr. Trump, what if you don't have the Congress? I mean, this is scary stuff. Free housing, right? What I like to see, what I really want to see is all these gas bag politicians running around saying, we need housing, we need housing. We've been through the economics of this 50 million times. The economics will fail because the private rents will not sustain the project. Enter whatever, enter welfare, enter rent control. Think of the worst things imaginable. Now, should this thing default to the point of free housing? Hey, politician, do you see this? Are you for it? Oh, no, I'm not for it. Well, what would you do to stop it? What would you do to stop this from happening? And this is where I think the rubber meets the road. Now again, the spending clause, right? Guess what? If you don't have the Congress, free transit, that's to take you away from your car. Sorry, that's what it is. It's they want to know where you're going and they want to have you on their thumb as you go. Free cell phones, right? If the darn thing even works, if the darn system even works, who's going to be listening to your calls? Hey, you're using too many minutes. Hey, you talk to, Tony D'Angelo talked to Lee Elci. We got to stop that. The state-run grocery stores. Let's just buy everybody out and drive the profit markets down and it's profit margins down. The thing that really scares me, I was looking at this right before airtime. Socialist banking, state banking, it's this whole thing now, and you're going to hear this. You will hear this from an Elliott. You will certainly hear this from, the other people that are, the Fateas and the Mondamis. Banking and capital and all that, this could be over very, very quickly because all they have to do is say, well, we don't, we're just going to lend money to where we feel we should lend money. And there's no accountability to the shareholders. There's no accountability to the depositors. There's no risk. We're just going to make our interest rates really low. Of course, we're going to keep these out of, using Mr. Mondami's term, not my own, white neighborhoods, and put them in neighborhoods that we think that it would be necessary to do that. This is going to be probably the number one arrow at private capital. And it's, if you don't see that happening, and if you don't see the pressures that are happening, I can't help you, if you're opposed to socialism, I can't help you any more than I already have about this is what you need to do in order to stop it. You need to understand what's in the tax bill. You need to understand energy. You need to understand banking. You need to understand free markets. And if you are the least bit confused about it, number one, read, ask for help, and don't let them soft soap you that this is just something we're trying to do to help people. Don't let them guilt you out. I mean, This could be very, very, very close, and it takes a whole lot. I'm very concerned right now. I'm praying if we can do it. I might be the first one to tell you this, but I got to tell you the truth.
Tony D'Angelo 7 on the X. And as far as everything that you just spelled out, I think you're spot on. And in addition to that, well, the other side that also makes me almost equally as nervous, Tony, is, and we could cover this, we don't have time today, but down the road is the Sharia/Muslim angle to a lot of these potential candidates. I think that's a growing thing that we sort of have tried to put out to the side, and I think that's something that we're going to have to figure out.
Curiously ignored by a lot of Republicans, and that's this is where you have to get real. You have to start being political. You have to start being operational.
Agreed. What do you got coming up Thursday? Tell everybody.
Information. We're going to look at your information being stolen. I got a great example in the state of Connecticut. Tucker Carlson was talking with somebody last night in the Bush administration about it. I mean, we were talking about this 5 years ago, and it's a lot more pervasive than I think any of us have imagined.
All right, buddy. Listen, we'll talk to you then. Where can they find your YouTube page? Where do they go?
Type 30 with Tony in on Google, and you'll go right to the page. Thursdays at 3 Eastern, a new show.
All right, brother. Thank you. Always appreciate
Thank you, Bill.
All right, Tony D, the great Tony D. We'll take a break. We'll come back. I'm going to tell you what would happen if the Middle East went chaotic with no United States.
They've chained him to a chair. Won't you please come to Chicago just to sing?